Before we started, I would like to recognize and also thanks to the whole team, DDTV team and the director Ming Zhou's team and all the volunteers working together, especially our coordinator and producer Han Yuefang here. Yes, thank you. Let's give our thanks to him. Yes, and Wesley there, and Joe Wang here, and Clara here. Thank you so much, Yan. And 曾老师, Ray, 还有李瑞, Lily, and all of you, thank you. And we're so honored to have all of you working together. So next, I'm going to give the microphone to Han to give us a short introduction about what is Civic Leadership Forum, Silicon Valley. Han, microphone is yours. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody. So Civic Leadership Forum was created by DDTV in 2017. And in 2021, under COVID, it was renewed again with Silicon Valley community media when everybody was grounded, if you remember that time. So Civic Leadership Forum is a platform for civic engagement and leadership. And it has involved a lot of people for the past couple of years, over 2,000 audiences with, parents, children, community leaders, as well as, public officials. Everybody has been involved. And we post this on the web and on YouTube. So we have over, I think, 2 million viewers, quite a lot of viewers already at this stage. So the 200,000 viewers online. With that, so we have now about 4 times a year of this forum, and we tackle, different things that to share with the community. Sometimes looking to the past, sometimes looking to the present. We share with the future generations, between generations, and as well as across different Asian American communities. With that, welcome today. Thank you. I would like to introduce. Thank you. I would like to introduce to you our host for today, Claire Wu, and she will take it from here and take you through the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Han. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the Civic Leadership Forum, Silicon Valley. Today's event is sponsored by DDTV, Silicon Valley Community Media, and History Channels for Chinese Americans. I'm your host today, Claire Wu. It's great to see such a wonderful turnout for this event. I know everybody put a lot of time and effort to organize this event. Today is the 78th anniversary of VJ Day. And also, we are commemorating 170-year history of Chinese American sacrifices and contributions to America. By our director, Ming Zhou, the 3 films are 1 Mile Walk, My 58 Uncles, and Born to Fly. To get started, let's give a big round of applause to Diana Ding, the founder of Silicon Valley Community Media and DDTV, for the event's opening statements. Please step to the stage, Diana.
Thank you so much, Claire. Yes, first of all, thank you so much. I know many people coming from far away. Some people from San Francisco, stand up and see. Raise up your hand from San Francisco. Yeah, thank you. And some friends are from Monterey Bay, and yes, this morning they come really early. From where? You told me. Yes, Li Rui. Yes, from really far away. And some of our friends even from Sacramento. So Sacramento friends, raise up your hand. Lily, right, thank you. Yes, this is very important topic. All these years, DDTV, Silicon Valley Community Media has committed ourselves in telling Asian American stories, especially during the COVID. We know it's really important to share our stories and to understand each other, to appreciate difference, because we, Chinese Americans, Asian Americans, we are the contributors. We're not the takers, we are the givers, we are the contributors. But we have to tell our story. So we're so lucky and so honored to have so many friends joining us together. And thanks to former Assembly Member Kenson Chu and Daisy Chu for coming, and thank you. And my friend Dennis Wu, Jeff Lee, and coming all the way from San Francisco, and also Veterans Club, Y-In Club, and many other history clubs. And you are all my VIP members. Sister He Konghua, for supporting us all these years, 20 years. Thank you so much. So everybody are VIP. I'm not going to mention each one of them, but today's film is very important. So I'm going to invite our director, and I'm going to just mention a little bit about Ming Zhou. Actually, I know her for over 10 years, a very hardworking lady, and also very determined, sometimes stubborn, but very talented. And she's a very active filmmaker and journalist in San Francisco Bay Area, has been researching Chinese American histories for the last 8 years. Ming has won a lot of film awards internationally and nationally. And now she's working on 3 documentary films. Today we're going to watch half of the film and watch 2 other trailers, because we don't have time to watch the whole film. But we will inform you, and please do pay attention to all the events we organize. And we're going to have these events as a series. So with this, let's welcome our director and filmmaker, Ming Zhou, to the stage.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Today, I'm going to just show you half of my productions, even though there are 3 films, but they are productions in progress. The first one is half produced. I'm going to show you the 30-minute version, English version of One Mile Walk. That's about Monterey Bay history. That's a history I didn't know 3 years ago until Jerry told me about that. However, I was distracted back then. I was interested in the railroad history. I didn't follow up with Jerry, but that's a thing I regret to death, because one day suddenly I found out Jerry passed away. That's why I feel I owe her such a film. So I produced the short documentaries first to dedicate it to Jerry, to commemorate her 10 years of journey, walking along, fighting along. And this 1 mile is very symbolic. It's just a beginning for our Chinese Americans. And we think we still have a long way to go. And thank you so much for coming. And all I want to say is included in this film. Thank you. Henry Road is one of the top attractions in Monterey Bay. Millions of visitors come here every year for the colorful waterfront life. Henry Road also is the neighborhood where Nobel Prize winner John Steinbeck started writing. He wrote a novel, Henry Road, in 1945, making it the most famous street in America. However, very few people knew there was a Chinese fishing village in Pacific Grove and Point Alonis. Then, on May 14, 1906, a mysterious fire burned down the Point Alonis fishing village. Hundreds of Chinese men and women lost their homes. They were not allowed to rebuild their homes on the site. Later, some villagers moved to McBee Beach by Henry Road. The village was Monterey Bay's last shelter for Chinese fishermen and women. Jerry is the 5th generation of the fishing village. She's the person who led me down the road to find the disappeared fishing villages of Monterey Bay. I met Jerry only once, but I owe her such a film.
and I were together for 50 years. You know, we basically grew up together. So when she passed away, I feel like half of me is gone. That's why when I come down here and I talk about her, I get really emotional about her because I miss her. I actually worked in the farms here in Salinas Valley. And then in 1971, I went to Cal State University, Hayward. It was there in 1971 that I met Jerry, probably the most beautiful Chinese woman that I had seen in a long time. And in fact, I proposed to her on campus when we were seniors. And her first response to me is, "You're crazy. We haven't even graduated from college yet. Why are you asking me this?"
I first met Jerry in 2004 when I had just become the library director at Monterey Public Library. One afternoon, I had a staff person come up to me and say, "There's a woman who's very concerned about a swarm of bees in the parking lot." And I went down to talk to her, and it turned out to be Jerry. And so we started a conversation that soon became very warm and friendly. And she was asking me if I knew about the history of the Chinese in Monterey. And I knew a little bit. She started telling me stories of her ancestor Kwok Moi and her family and the fishing village. And I realized, oh my goodness, there was so much more to be learned about that. 2004 was also when California State University Monterey Bay, I think it was their teledramatics department, had just finished By Light of Lanterns, which was a story about the Chinese fisher people in Monterey. And Jerry was telling me about that, and we wound up inviting her to give the first showing of it in Monterey at the Monterey Public Library in October of 2004.
So in here, in this room here, this exhibit, this is what Jerry saw. It was corrected. It talks about Kwok Moi
Why Kwok Moi was called the Spanish Mary?
because she spoke like 5 languages, and she did translating. And according to Jerry, said it was people must have trusted her. You got to trust someone to translate for you.
And at first, Jerry didn't think anything of it, but when she looked at the picture more carefully, she could tell that in the background, Kwok Moi is standing in front of a building with these wooden slats. So when she went home, she asked her mother. Her mother said to her, "Yeah, that's Kwok Moi, that's your great-grandmother." She never knew it until she saw that picture. And then she started to get, really curious, intrigued about, who is this lady? Where did she come from? Why did she come here? How come no one ever told us the story? Kwok Moi is the first documented Chinese woman born in the Monterey area. She was born here in August 1859. Her parents came on a Chinese junk from China, like 1850. They landed at the foot of the Carmel River near Point Lobos.
So this is sort of like our Mayflower here. Here's Jerry.
This one is from last year. Last year.
This is a great article that
Wonderful.
Pacific Weekly
Very
did.
well written. Very well.
Jerry learned that history from talking to her aunts and other relatives. So she began to piece together the picture. What was intriguing to Jerry was, how come nobody ever spoke about that story? Why did she have to learn about it by accident? I could feel kind of like the presence of the Chinese here. They built this building in the 1850s. Kwok Moi was born here. Jerry used to come here every time we were in Monterey, and she would come to visit the picture of Kwok Moi and the building itself. It's just not a building. This used to be somebody's house, and here is a person who's a descendant of the person who used to live here.
For California, the peak for here is around Thanksgiving. And then right now we're getting fewer and fewer. This generation has come from however far they come from and ended up here, but they're not necessarily going to be the ones that come back 5 generations later.
The story goes that they went from Point Lobos to another village at Pebble Beach Golf Course. The 19th hole of the Pebble Beach Golf Course is where the Chinese village was. I'm not sure how many years they stayed there, but they moved again from there to a village called Point Alonis, Point Almis, which is in Pacific Grove. In 1906, there was a fire, and that village was burnt down.
Please.
Wow.
Oh. Some of them have something written on the front of them with an accession number. Some of them don't. But most of them, that he did. So if we could find that number, we might be able to track it down and find the original negative and then take it that way.
Huge project.
Oh, huge.
Somewhere, yes, this is a thumbnail, and somewhere is the big picture, but the question is where?
These.
Chinese.
Okay, yeah. So there's obviously some writing.
Yeah. Can we find the original picture of this?
So we're fortunate that there were some photographers back then that took some very nice photos.
Yeah.
Outdoor shrine in Chinatown after the fire. So we're fortunate that there were some photographers back then that took some very nice photos.
Nobody really knows how the fire started, but if you read Sandy Leiden's book, Chinese Gold, the firemen were putting out the fire and then their hose got cut. Don't know who cut the hose. Because they couldn't get any water, they couldn't fight the fire and the village burned down. At the same time, when the fire was happening, the Chinese would go into their houses, take out their stuff. The people that were standing around started looting their stuff.
Yesterday, crowds of curious people visited the ruins where Chinatown once stood. They were all eager to obtain some memento of Old Town, which had stood on the shore of the bay for so many a year. The ruins were searched for money and any curious-looking thing that they could find, they took away with them. The ruins were still smoldering in some places. It was one of those disgraceful affairs that cannot be foreseen. did have people that showed kindness to those who were affected. Ladies and gentlemen occupying fine residences offered and took Chinese women and children home with them for the night and cared for them. Mayor Will Jacks of the city took a Chinese mother and a babe of but a few hours old and the entire family of 6 into his automobile and carried them over to Pacific Grove and made them comfortable in one of his cottages.
The area that the Chinese settled, I believe that there is some evidence that they first settled around the Pacific Grove coastline before the Americans came. They settled when it was under Mexican rule, I believe. And they, then the land, when the Americans came, the Pacific Improvement Company, when Mr. Jacks, oh, I'm going to take this land, and now everybody who's using this land has to pay me the rent because I'm now the landlord. So the Chinese then shifted over and paid the rent to Mr. Jacks. Well, then Mr. Jacks said, now I'm going to make my money, I'm going to sell it to the Pacific Improvement Company. That was what Pebble Beach was beforehand. Well, this was just sort of abandoned coastline that nobody really saw any use for until the trains came through. And then once the train came through, then there was this idea that, oh, because people were interested in going and visiting other areas, so it could become tourism. And then it could become pieces of property they could sell for homes. So at that point, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, it was no longer convenient to collect rent from fishermen because you could make a lot more money selling off the land for a house or selling off the land for tents or a hotel. Even though the Chinese fishermen had paid rent and had done everything they could within their very limited options to exist there.
Big companies started buying up this land, and one of them was the Pacific Improvement Company. So they bought up the land. The Chinese, as far as I know, could not purchase and own land.
So I believe that it was the smell of their fish that was part of the reason that was given as why we have to kick them off. Because they'd been doing this for decades, and there weren't a lot of people around them when they were doing it. And it used to be Carmel by the Sea, Pacific Grove by God, because Pacific Grove was a Methodist church retreat, and Monterey by the Smell. And so it was, again, the canneries made terrible odors and they had drying fish innards and everything else, but nobody said, let's kick the canneries out.
Lee is the perfect source for the specimens that they're interested in. This is the third president Stanford.
Oh, okay.
Right here, Ray, Lyman, Wilbur.
Wow.
Okay? Ray is really close with Tuckley.
Watch your steps.
So just a little bit further, based against this rock, was Tuckley's home.
Jerry's great-grandfather was one of the last to leave the village. He fought it. There were a number of other Chinese who refused to go, and they fought being evicted. They finally decided that they would give up their lawsuit. But as a condition of that lawsuit, they agreed to move the village again. That last village is where Jerry's mother was born. Believe her aunt, who's 106, still alive, was also, born in that village. She's the only living person who was born in that village.
Chinese people in the fishing village didn't just disappear when the village was burned. They figured out a way to stay around. They persevered, making contributions in a positive way. But one of the things that I learned, not from Jerry necessarily, but in my research on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force, was that the year before the village was burned was the first year that the Feast of Lanterns took place. And so the second year that the Feast of Lanterns took place, in the summer after the village had been burned, less than half a mile away, when members of the fishing village were still trying to occupy the buildings, still trying to make a legal claim that they still had rights on that property, even though, as Chinese, they're not allowed to testify in court. All of the federal and state laws, rules, and regulations against the Chinese were so horrible, so dehumanizing.
There was a local event in Pacific Grove called the Feast of Lanterns. It is an event that the local community puts on. At the end of the Feast of Lanterns, they have a play that they perform on the beach. And it's basically a play that was written by a Caucasian, and yet it's a story about an Asian family. The primary actors are Caucasian. They dress up in Chinese costumes. And earlier, when this play was going on, some of the participants would paint their faces yellow, or they would kind of like put makeup on their eyes to slant their eyes. This doesn't happen now, but this happened, it did happen. Jerry didn't like the play, and she tried to get it changed. She approached the organizers of the Feast of Lanterns, and they would listen to her, but they never changed it.
I didn't have the strength of character that Jerry did to actually go to the Feast of Lanterns nonprofit board and say, this isn't right, you need to change this. And I think Jerry was ahead of her time.
Jerry and I had conversations all along the way, discuss how do we best navigate change in a way that's positive for everyone. There can be true healing in the community around what has happened in the past, and also that we can move forward to create a community that's safe for everybody. But yes, there was a lot of resistance. There's a lot of white fragility in Pacific Grove. There's a desire to keep the town in a particular way, but that way is unsustainable. But what always struck me about Jerry was how much she cared about people, and that she was willing to form a friendship and a bond with me, even though I was the head of an organization that was hurting her community. So I felt that the public apology was a more important piece to catalyze change. And I also felt it was important to call out the white leadership in Pacific Grove. Jerry was somewhat fearful of that because of her experiences, her past experiences.
And I remember Jerry telling me about how it was very hard for some of her relatives when she started talking about this. And they would say, why are you making a fuss? Don't talk about this. So to me, part of it is that fear that this happened. This really happened in our family's history, so maybe we're still afraid about it. I was telling my father about why I thought this was important, and he said, in 1972, we wanted to look at Pebble Beach because your mother wanted some property and have a garden and things. And the real estate agent told your mother, who was American, but not me, I don't think you'd be comfortable in Pebble Beach. They're not very kind to Asian people there. Again, to me, that's not past history, that's pretty current.
I had seen some pushback from our own community, the Chinese community, about an apology. And a lot of folks were saying, what good's an apology going to do? Why are you bringing this up now? I would tell them that it's important to do this now, and it's a message to the community that what was done in the past, and even what's done now, is not right.
It was a very emotional process for me to go from really being a champion of the organization and being the president and being a past queen to really realizing the harm it was causing and then recognize I couldn't lead the organization in a direction that was meaningful. If the Feast of Lanterns still existed, the stories would not be centered in the way that they need to.
Pacific Grove finally adopted an apology resolution. After 170 years, they adopted this resolution. And Pacific Grove is like one of only 5 cities in the state of California that approved an apology resolution.
I saw the news on her Facebook page that she had actually passed. It was very difficult. She's a huge loss for the community.
The City Council earlier this week unanimously approved for the apology resolution, and I hope that this letter really begins the healing process.
An apology does not change the past. The past is still there. But an apology, if it is a meaningful apology, acknowledges what happened. And it acknowledges your responsibility in what happened. And then you make a commitment to try and do better in the future.
I was carrying a portrait of Jerry that was painted by a friend of hers. And it's a picture of her in front of the village. So, in a way, she was part of the walk. And I could feel her walking, and smiling with us. I had a hard time last year. I didn't know if I was going to be able to participate. She would have been so happy, and so proud. I just wish she had been there to see it. Although, I could feel her presence. She spent 10 years trying to make these changes. Hey, Jerry. It's been a year now since you passed away. To visit you and to the rest of your family, I wanted to let you know that, the kids are doing okay. Oh. Last year, the walk, there was over 300 people. It was a huge success. We're planning already for the next Walk of Remembrance. And I'm here today with Ming Zhao. I believe you met her several years ago at an event in Palo Alto.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
And she told me that she feels bad that she didn't get a chance to do a documentary or story about you.
My great-grandparents' village in Pacific Road was burned down on May 16, 1906. And after that, and my grandfather was born in that village in 1881. But after that, people just didn't talk about it. And they knew that people moved far away. And my grandpa only moved a few blocks into Monterey. And so I think because of the proximity of, so close to where the village was burned down, nobody talked about it. So not only do the community sweep the stories under the carpet, but even the Chinese families do. And people ask me, well, how come? And it's like, I don't know, but I think they must have been afraid.
I miss you every day. I wish I could see you one more time. I love you.
The 1906 fire destroyed the Chinese fishing village, but left a permanent trauma. Time heals the wounds, but the hurt never goes away. The more I know about Jerry, the more I miss her. Now you know the story. The torch is in your hand.